Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone, and today we're going to take a deep dive look into Arishem, why the nerf was not enough, and this is going to remain one of the best, if not the best, decks in all of Marvel Snap. But we're going to begin by talking about Code and Goa's Infinite Arishem. This is an Infinite Agatha list. I want to give you this opportunity to play this list as just a sort of easy way to hit Infinite with Arishem. It's sort of self-fulfilling where like Agatha does a lot of the plays for you, but you should still be able to win and compete really effectively with this deck as long as you're paying attention to your snapping and retreating, regardless of having Agatha, just because this deck does so much. We'll talk about what that is when we talk about why Arishem's a problem going forward, but you can find the creator of this deck at twitter.com/snapsnapretreat. This deck was created by the same person who did the data deep dive that we're going to take a look at when we look closely into Arishem. So it is worth noting, and we'll talk again more about this is the perfect cost curve for Arishem in order to spend max energy, so anything but Arishem and Loki should be replaceable here. Loki was better in the list when it hit Infinite, especially with Agatha in the list, in that Loki was a 4-cost card. This is 4-cost Loki replaces hand in the perfect curve, which is going to change things up. It means that our perfect curve here wants 3 3s and 3 4s, not 4 3s and 2 4s. Good, that's worth noting. We're going to take a look at why that matters again later on. You should still be able to perfectly well succeed with this list. We've got someone on our Discord who managed to get all the way to the Cassandra Nova, not just Cassandra Nova, the Cassandra Nova variant by using an Arishem Agatha list. Arishem Agatha is a real deck, as weird as that sounds. We'll talk about, again, what makes Arishem so powerful that even Agatha can't ruin it as long as you're focused. Silk and White Widow are just good 2-cost cards here. Silk is pretty nice with Agatha, though, because it can move around and end up in a lane that really helps you, especially because you can sort of control it on turn 6. White Widow is also just a good 2. It turns out a lot of the good 2-drops aren't cards you really want here. Agatha will move Jeff whenever she wants, which isn't ideal for you, right? Jeff, randomly move Jeff isn't great. You don't want to play Kate Bishop, or you don't want to play Mirage or Cable, because you don't want those cards pulled to add extra randomness to your Agatha. So if you don't have Silk and White Widow, the changes I suggest are Scorpion and Scarlet Witch. Scorpion on turn 1 just seems very strong, and Scarlet Witch helps because occasionally Agatha will just decide to play everything in Death's Domain, right? But if Scarlet Witch is one of those cards, then all of a sudden you're sort of okay. Gladiator here is just big stats. Copycat, Mobius, Polaris are fine replacements here. I'm starting to go up on Mobius again. It's time to start considering adding Mobius and Mobius to your decks. And Mockingbird can be Alioth or Magneto. Mockingbird is nice because obviously she gets cheaper, but she's not a requirement here. All right, so this is the perfect Arishem curve, and Arishem turn-by-turns are always a little bit strange, but this one's extra completely insane because we got Agatha. However, something happens and you get control. This is sort of what you're looking for, what you're hoping to happen. Turn 1, you want Scorpion over Scarlet Witch. Turn 2, you want Wave over Loki, over Mobius, over Gladiator. Wave obviously lets you play Agatha. That's why you want Wave as soon as possible, if humanly possible. Turn 3, Wave or Loki is better than Fury or Captain Marvel, pending hand size. Turn 4, you want Vision or one of your turn 3 plays. You're still fine playing that Loki on turn 4, just in case you're wondering. Turn 5, Agatha will play herself if nothing else has changed. And then turn 6, you've got Mockingbird and a bunch of other stuff to play. Mockingbird and Fury generated cards, Mockingbird and Captain Marvel, Mockingbird and Agent Coulson. Coulson's not in this version, excuse me. Mockingbird and Gladiator, stuff like that. You're just trying to put as much power down as possible because it's an Agatha deck. You're not running Shang-Chi. That is literally the only reason Shang isn't in here. Agatha with Shang doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Agatha will just play Shang on turn 3 and to an empty lane, and now you just played a 4-3. Congrats. All right, so we're going to look at this deck one more time, then we're going to chat for a moment, and then we're going to take a deep dive into Arishem, and then use this deck, this script that created this perfect curve or best curve for spending energy for Arishem in order to create what we think is the best Arishem deck possible right now in Marvel Snap. All right, one last look at this. Again, if you just want to hit Infinite on easy mode, you want to hit some weekend missions and you can replace, not weekend missions, excuse me, bounties with multiple cards, and you want to just like stare at the computer screen, TV while you do it and not have to pay too much attention, this is fundamentally the perfect deck to do so. Like if you just add the 2 cards that you need, right? Like the problem is solved and you get your bounties done, you get Infinite, whatever you want. This is a very powerful deck. Before we get to a deep dive on Arishem, I'm going to ask you to hit that sub button, and if you're willing to like and comment, we're trying to hit 15,000 subs by the end of the year. We're almost at 13,000. Any extra help or support you can give us would really be appreciated. Subbing, obviously, is one more sub. Liking and commenting helps us fight the YouTube algorithm and get our more eyes on this. In return, we do 7 days a week of videos. We never, ever, ever miss a day. We have at least 3 brand new decks every day and a giant podcast every single Saturday. So if you're interested in that, please hit that sub button if you find value. In addition, we give away a ton of season passes. Next week, when I'm back home, I'm in Colombia. Next week, when I'm back home, I'll be giving away 5 season passes. The week after, I'll be giving away 5 more. There's 1 season pass this week. All you have to do is like, sub, and comment. And I'm going to ask a question. The comment should be an answer to that question. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be at the end of the Arishem section. So let's take a look at Arishem. Arishem, for anyone who has been not playing Marvel Snap lately, thanks for watching, welcome back, is a 7/7, Series 5, 6,000 tokens. It is the most popular and one of the most powerful cards in the game. At the start of the game, +1 max energy and shuffle 15 random cards into your deck. It was 12. This card was recently nerfed, and that nerf is what inspired me to make this video. All right, so Coding Goa wasn't convinced the Arishem nerf would rein him in and explains why. The first reason is that the change, the 3 extra cards, random cards added to Arishem, make less than a 0.5% difference. Sorry, a 0.5 energy difference in energy spent per game. You can see that on the chart right here. We're going to look back at this chart in a little bit, but you can see like a giant drop off based on the number of cards. This is where we are from 12 to 15, and the drop off is less than 0.5% in difference in spending energy in any given game. So that deck we looked at first was made by a script that evaluates decks by playing out games and measuring energy spent. Obviously, I'm unable to do that, but Coding Goa is not. So it's going to measure energy spent. It's going to swap cards with lower and higher cost ones, pens, to maximize energy spent performance. All good? So this deck is made fundamentally to maximize energy spent, which means that we should be able to build our own deck that maximizes energy spent at the end of this, except we're not machines, so we can look at specific cards, not just energy, because the first one was really looking at was energy. Got it? There's a GitHub if you would like to run this script on Coding Goa's Twitter at @SnapSnapRetreat. The same script gives us the previous chart. Again, that's telling us how much energy we're spending with the ideal cost curve versus not running cards at all. So the first 10 random cards added have a huge change, but then it matters less and less the more we go, especially as we get to smaller numbers. Ready? A completely 100% random deck. We're talking 24 cards, outside of, I guess, 23 because Arishem has to be in it. Completely random, manages to spend 24.3 energy on average. With every card in Marvel Snap just shoved into a deck at random, 24.3 on average, which is more than the 21 in a regular game of Snap. But that 21 in a regular game of Snap is a perfect draw. That's spending all your energy every turn. If you've played Snap, you know it's not a game where you spend all your energy every single turn, right? So this ends up being 3.3% more than the max, their average, with 24 random cards. 20 is 3.3 more energy per game. That means a totally random series of cards still manages to spend more energy than every top non-Arishem deck in Snap. That hits its like, I did my thing. The difference in card quality needs to make up for almost 4.5 energy disparity on average. On average, right here, the difference in energy spent ends up being about 4.5, as you can see from this chart. Cool. The optimized non-Arishem deck spends 2.1 energy per game. That is the red line at the bottom versus the Arishem list. So Arishem is spending a ridiculous amount more of energy. And remember, this is a randomly generated Arishem deck, not an ideal curve Arishem deck. So let's compare this to Sarah, who used to be our cost reduction best card, the best way to play as many cards as possible. Sarah, who on turn 5 generates an average of 3 extra energy. Good. You play her on turn 5, turn 6, you end up usually playing 3 cards. That's 3 extra energy. But, and this is my note, you paid 5 for Sarah. So, like, you spent an entire turn getting 4 power to have the opportunity to try and get your opponent with 3 extra energy at the end. Plus, you need to draw Sarah and play her at the exact right time. You need her by turn 5. Sarah on turn 6 does not do this, right? Unless it's a 7-turn game, obviously. We're talking about a regular 6-turn game for ease of use. So not only are you spending 5 on Sarah, you're then getting a refund of about 3 at a really opportune time, in fairness, but you're getting 3 extra energy. Cool. So that ends up not being all that great when you look at it that way, right? Electro, Corvus Glaive, and Wave all have a similar 2 to 3 energy cheat per game, but you also have to draw and play them, which is negative energy, right? So playing Wave or Glaive or Electro is 3 energy spent to get 2 to 3 back per game. Sounds like that's relatively even, right? You also, but you still need to draw them at the right time, and they all have their own individual drawbacks. Arishem's drawback, however, is the consistency of adding extra cards. For example, Loki on turn 2, with this most recent change, goes down from 20.8 to 18.5%. Yup, it's only a 2.3% change. That's going to be big in a large enough sample, but in individual games, you're very unlikely to feel that difference. Again, a quick chart, a chance of drawing by a specific turn. All good? 0 random cards, your chance is right here. You have a way greater chance without Arishem, right, of drawing all these cards, versus if you have a random 12 cards in the deck and a random 15 cards in the deck, that's the green and the blue, and then the full 24 is actually a real change. If you have the full 24, you're actually going down like 5% and up to 10%, but the other change from going from 12 to 15 is a 2 to 4% difference during the course of the game in seeing any specific card. That's not that bad. However, Arishem himself is the ultimate card advantage, even with no deck of your own. He's enabled from the game start, turn 0, not even turn 1. The second the game starts, you don't have to draw him, you don't have to play him, you have that energy boost. And he stacks with further card generation. So, like, you're not losing the energy of playing the card, right? Which you do with all these others. Plus, he's going to stack with further card generation and cost reduction, right? So, like, you can use him, and then you can also use a card like Sarah, or a card like Loki, or a card like Quinjet to make you have not only that original biggest energy advantage in the game by far, but also make a bunch of cards cheaper. For all of these reasons, Arishem is going to remain one of the best cards and decks in the game for the foreseeable future. That extra energy without having to do anything but play the cards means that the randomly generated cards have to be so bad for you to be behind, and they have to hit their exact curve and exact combos so hard that Arishem will remain in most games one of the very, very best decks. All right. Arishem's cost curve deck. This is where what I put together upon thinking about what that previous cost curve was. This has a 1 drop where there was an extra 2 drop here. It's still running 3 3s, 3 4s, although it's got Shang in there. And then we've got 1 5 and then 2 6s. We're not running an Agatha list, obviously, so Alliath made sense. Again, twitch.tv/snapsnapretreat if you're interested in more of this. Valentina can be Cable or Mirage here. Mobius can be Copycat, Gladiator, Juggernaut, or Polaris. Alliath can be Magneto. And Mockingbird can be She-Hulk. So I took the cost curve, considered reduction in card generation, and built what I think is the ultimate energy spender to maximize advantage, and we're going to go card by card. So we cut a 2 for Quinjet, because my logic is that Quinjet gives you more than spending that extra 1 energy on the first turn of the game. Quinjet can generate more than that 1 energy, and thus you end up spending more energy throughout the course of the game because you have Quinjet on the board. That seems totally reasonable, right? If you went Quinjet Valentina, then you can play that 4 on 3, you can play a randomly generated card earlier, all that creates extra power. Quinjet also synergizes with Loki and Agent Coulson and Nick Fury. Playing Nick Fury on 3 with Quinjet out means you can play 3 6s in the game for what ends up being far more extra energy than playing any other 2 in the game. Valentina likewise helps out our curve. Valentina on 1 could randomly backfire, but it's very likely to mean that on turn 3 we have a 6 drop that we can play. Do we always want to play the 6 drop? No, of course not, but Valentina is very powerful in creating that extra card, letting us spend that extra energy when our otherwise random draws don't go our way, which is the same reason Agent Coulson is in the deck. Agent Coulson gives us that extra energy, those extra draws when things don't go our way. Then we have Loki. Loki is the best card in every single Arishem list. You should absolutely be playing Loki in every Arishem list, saying, I'm going to get rid of all of my random cards, go down to what amounts to 11 cards at -1 cost and +1 energy, assuming your opponent has chosen to what deck they're going to play. You're just so far ahead by Loki, and you want to Loki as soon as possible. Finally, we have Mobius, and because Loki is so powerful and in so many decks, I think Mobius should really be in a lot more decks. Also, we're starting to see a lot more cost reduction. Mockingbird is in a ton of decks. I'm starting to see a lot of Scar and Sasquatch type decks. Bounce has Beast. I'm seeing Death because Lady Deathstrike was buffed. Mobius gives us a card that they have to answer in order to make their combinations, and it's just a safe and easy card to play on turn 3. Shang-Chi is the only card here that you don't want to play along its cost curve. We know what Shang-Chi is. It is the ultimate answer. It is the only thing messing up the curve at all, at least in my opinion here. But the caveat to that is that I think Valentina and Agent Coulson make up for the downside of running Shang in terms of spending energy. Then we have Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel on 3 is insanely good. Captain Marvel fundamentally on turn 3 is a 3/5 that can win you the game at the end. Just solves so many problems with early placement without you actually having to worry about things. Nick Fury synergizes with Quinjet as another amazing card that can let you play multiple 6-drops. It gives you a chance to surprise the opponent with more generation and more random answers. Sometimes you don't see big things, and you don't want to run too many big things and mess up your curve, right? Nick Fury takes care of that problem for you. Vision is just slightly bigger Captain Marvel here. Dropping on turn 4 as a 4/8, being able to move, can let you win or lose priority as you so choose. It can end up being an extremely powerful card as your opponent has to account for it to end the game. Alioth says, fundamentally, don't Shang me, don't Juggernaut me, don't do that thing if I decide I want priority with my cards like Vision. Or it's just a decent-sized body if if worse comes to worse. Alioth is fairly often a play on turn 5 against regular decks if you think they're going to Cersei, Annihilus, whatever, and you know where they're going to play that card. Alioth can be game-winning. And meanwhile, outside of both Valentina and Agent Coulson and Nick Fury generating cards, Arishem still generates plenty of cards, so Mockingbird is very often a 3 or 4/10, and that is, again, cheaper than it seems given that Arishem gives you extra energy. And obviously Arishem is Arishem, who we've been talking about this whole time. That's why every single card is in this list that I built myself in order to try and maximize the energy curve of Arishem. And now it's time for the question. I'm going to ask you all to, as best you can, play this deck and keep some stats. Are you willing to play this deck? What changes would you make? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you think of both Arishem and this particular Arishem list? Let me know in the comments to enter to win the last. This week is the last of the Kate Bishop season passes we're giving away. This summer flew by. All right, so enjoy spending way more energy than anyone else. And again, Arishem starts out with 2, then plus 3, that's 5, then plus 4, that's 9, right? Then plus 5, we're at 14. Plus 6, we're at 20. Plus 7, we're at 27. 6 more max energy than the absolute max another deck can spend, and we're doing our best to spend all of it. We're saying we get a whole extra turn. We get a magic, and you don't beat us. That is what this deck is trying to accomplish. Turn 1, Quinjet over Valentina, assuming that you have anything generated. If you don't, then you might want to play Valentina, but I generally like to get out Quinjet. The other reason to play Valentina is sometimes that Quinjet can just be, you have an extra 1 energy, right? Because you have so much energy, you can just drop it in alongside something else, like a Loki on turn 3 plus Quinjet is perfectly fine. Turn 2, you would like to Loki more than almost anything in the game. That's over Agent Coulson because you want to find some cards, which is over Valentina, which is over Mobius, although Mobius can change depending on what your opponent is playing. For example, if you generated a Spider Hand on turn 1, maybe you want to drop a Mobius turn 2, right? If they're clearly playing a bounce deck. They play Kitty Pryde. You might want to get a Mobius down. Although I guess Kitty Pryde is less in bounce now and more in thena stuff, so maybe you don't want to get a Mobius down then. I don't know. You're going to have to think it through. It's hard to know what a bounce deck is for the first couple turns. As soon as you see like a werewolf or something, Mobius suddenly goes up in value. Turn 3, Loki over Fury. Pending hand size, you don't want to clog your hand. Over Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel's more or less equal to Coulson here, depending on what you have, right? Fury goes way up the playlist if you have Quinjet, just for the record. Turn 4 is Vision or 3. You can also drop Mockingbird reasonably often on turn 4. Remember, all you need to do is have played 1 card to be able to Mockingbird, 1 not started in your deck card to be able to play Mockingbird on 4. So sometimes you can even Mockingbird on 3. It's fine. When you can Mockingbird, feel free to. If they Shang Mockingbird, they're not Shanging something else in most cases. Then we've got generated cards for your turn 4 play for turn 5. You can also Shang or Alioth. Fairly often you'll Alioth here and Shang next turn. Sometimes you'll Shang here and Alioth next turn. Whatever. Same concept as turn 6, and remember to spend all your energy with extra cards as you can, because you're generating them like crazy. All good. We're going to talk about the stream team quickly, then we're going to go over to .geo bounce. So this is the Loki Arishem cost curve list. Again, I think this should be one of the best decks in Marvel Snap, period, bar none, and I strongly urge you to play it, to give it a try. This should be the, you should fundamentally get around an extra full turn of energy spread throughout the game on top of your opponent. And because the way energy works is power goes up, you should end up having more power than most of your opponents. If you'd like to see gameplay for all these decks, please check out the stream team. Today is Tuesday, which means the great Prashaun will be streaming at 12 p.m. Eastern. His lunchtime stream will have these decks, so check that out. Tomorrow, GamingwithFlashX will be streaming for us. He also streamed all weekend if you want to go check out his YouTube videos about it for us, because SnapCon was this weekend. But in addition to streaming for us, tomorrow, Flash will also be covering tomorrow's video while we're away. Next up, we have Geo's weekend. This is his actual list. Geo sent me this list as I really like Wiccan and Bounce. I think that this is a very good list. I agree. I tried this list out. It is quite strong. I kept getting told Wiccan was great in Bounce, but it kept being Hitmonkey Bounce, and I'm going to be completely serious right now. I do not think Hitmonkey Bounce is anywhere near as good as Werewolf Bounce right now in this current metagame. This is the list Geo sent me, though, and Geo was the #1 player in January. He's won multiple major tournaments. He's one of the best players in the history of the game, one of the few players with the argument to be the best ever. You should 1000% take a look at try any Geo deck. If you don't have Wiccan, though, don't freak out. So you can find Geo at twitter.com/.geo. It'd be nice if you stream more Geo, but this list is sick. Nico and Hem can be Iceman and Korg, or just sort of whatever 2/1 drop on reveals you feel like. White Widow can be Kate or Medusa. Copycat can be Shadow King. Wiccan can be Black Swan or Sasquatch here. You need Werewolf and Loki. Fundamentally, Werewolf and Loki together, I think, are just about the two most powerful things in the game, and thus, I think going with them in the deck seems important. After a few games with this list, I did make some changes. I ended up adding Shadow King and Kate Bishop. Copycat was great when Copycat was great, but often just a dead card, and I felt like I couldn't really afford a dead card, especially along my cost curve when I was trying to Wiccan, and Hawkeye took care of that extra cost curve problem by saying now I can play a 2 with a 1 when I don't have my Werewolf or Loki. And like that really helped me get my Wiccan out, and Wiccan meant I could Werewolf or Loki later in the game and still get an extremely high benefit. I did feel like I needed that extra tech card, and Shadow King is just amazing in the frickin' meta right. Alright, so Geo is the bounce god, the best bounce player in the history of the game. So turn 1, Hood, if no 2 is better than Ham or the others. The reason you're hooding if you don't have a 2 is because then you can play 2 1s on turn 2. Turn 2 is Kate or White Widow, whichever one you have, over 2 1s over the other 2s. And it's worth remembering that... So Gnome is another major bounce player. He's sitting in the top 20 right now, playing exclusively bounce. Gnome convinced me that Kate into Werewolf is kind of OP, so I like Kate better than Widow in my Werewolf decks. That is a controversial statement. Not everyone is there. White Widow, Werewolf or Loki is the turn 3 play, and then you can also play a 2+1. If you have 3 1s, you're fine. And then you can play Wiccan on turn 4. Turn 5 is bounce and move Werewolf a bunch, and then turn 6 is Shang and move stuff. Now, this is, we're going to talk about a little bit of stuff first, and then we're going to go to my day 1 speed deck. So this is Geo's Wiccan Bounce actual list. One last look at it. So this list drove me a little bit crazy, even after my changes. I don't think this is the best version, largely because I'm running, 2 of my 2-drops are Beast and Falcon. And Beast in particular, I need as a later play against a bunch of junk decks that are around. But I felt myself very often, for Wiccan, slamming Falcon on turn 2. If you've played any bounce, you should be aware that, like, that's not a thing you really ever want to be doing. Falcon on 2 is an extraordinarily rare play. But in order to get that Wiccan out, you sort of often have to, and that's not beneficial to the deck. That actually really hurts the deck. So this is a very powerful list, one that's worth playing if you have Wiccan, but it's also worth noting that Barzy is the #1 player in Snap. This is his main deck right now, and it is the same base deck as the Geo deck, except it just doesn't run Wiccan. It says, instead of that, I'm going to play my cards when I need to. It can now run Shadow King and Copycat together and not have to choose between the two, and then if it ends up missing one of those on turn 3, it's not the end of the world. I think this deck is genuinely better. There's also versions with Sasquatch and versions with Black Swan. There's junkful versions Barzey has 3 versions of this list. This is the one we're featuring because this is his main list that he's number 1 on the Infinite leaderboard with, at least as of recording. So given that, I'm going to suggest that Wiccan in Bounce is a little bit overrated right now because some big names really like it. I don't think you need to go Wiccan in Bounce, but if you have Wiccan and would like to try it, Geos is the deck to play. All right, next up, we have our Speed Day 1 deck. This is a Sizer list. Sizer was the number 1 player in the Infinite leaderboard last season, number 2 the 2 seasons before, number 1 in December. This is Sizer's list. He literally sent me this list and went, there's 1 extra spot. I was like, well, did you know that 1 extra spot is great at Speed? Why run Speed here? Well, I spend basically all my energy every turn, except occasionally I'll end up missing turn 1, which is totally fine, right? If I can get Speed to a 3-8, that's with an Iron Man lane, that's amazing. That's just a 16 power lane. I can play Speed on curve, I can play Speed later. Sage was often in this type of deck earlier. Sage is fairly often bigger than a 3-8, 3-9, right? But fairly often she's a 3-6 or 3-8. We've played Sage enough to know that. And like, you have to play Sage at the end of the game to get her there. I don't have the space in my curve to do that. But I can play Speed on turn 4 with Hydra Bob when I don't see Gwenpool, right? I can play Speed on turn 5 with Angela or Jeff and get 1 extra trigger on Hope so I can do all the things I want to end the game. Those are all perfectly fine plays and that offer me a lot of power. So I think Speed's flexibility, I think Speed needs a buff. I think Speed's generally a weaker card that's going to end up needing a buff and likely will get a buff, but I think this is the shell where I'm starting to try this card out even though I'm away. This is what I will be playing right away. So you can find Sizer at twitch.tv/Sizer2654. Speed, Cassandra, Elsa, Nocturne, Regardian, and Speed can be Cassandra, Elsa, Nocturne, Regardian, or Spidey. Again, the issue with Cassandra is that she wants to be played along curve. Nocturne is a really good replacement. Regardian is very strong right now, and Spidey to get on and off that Hope is perfectly fine. Thena or Hope can be Elsa, but not both. Elsa is a very strong replacement here. Not perfect, and you probably want to add a little bit more move, things like Nightcrawler if you do, but it's fine. Bob can be Nightcrawler, for example, and Jeff can be Kate, although now we're definitely not adding Elsa. All good? Kate is, again, just a very, very strong card. So Sizer has been playing this list without Speed in the top 10. I think this is probably a very powerful list. Turn 1, Kitty over Bob. Turn 2, Angela over Thena over Jeff. Turn 2, Hope or Thena +1. Turn 3, Hope or Thena +1. Turn 4, Gwenpool is better than 3 +1, which is better than Captain Marvel, not Ms. Formerly Ms. Marvel. Captain Marvel. Turn 5, you usually just find drop an Iron Man, but that's better than Gwen or Captain Marvel +1. And then turn 6 is Juggernaut and Shang if you can, or Juggernaut and Shang plus another card if you can. And that's it. That's how you win with this list. It is one of the better lists, one of the more powerful things in the game. Remember that Gwenpool multiplies that Iron Man trigger really, really well, and Gwenpool working on Captain Marvel is great. You've probably seen versions of this list with Vision in the 5 spot. There's some arguments that Vision is better here. I'm fine with Vision in that Iron Man spot. I like Iron Man a lot, just because sometimes your opponent's like, you can't possibly compete here. They put like a ridiculous amount of power in a lane, and then you can just, especially with 2 plays on Hope on turn 5, you can end up going Iron Man and Juggernaut and just sort of dominating. Right, or Speed and Juggernaut and just sort of winning that game that you sort of had no business otherwise winning, especially with Gwenpool getting Iron Man. So I think this list is very cool, very powerful, and worth giving a shout to. Questions of the day, then we're out of here. So our first, models asked me to PSA Proving Grounds and 8 cubes. All right, so in Proving Grounds, what we traditionally do is everyone fist bumps and then both people snap. You get nothing if you lose Proving Grounds, so just sort of make it go as quickly as possible. Compete in silver and up where possible. In addition, please do the double snap. Don't just lose 4 cubes and concede, because some people are trying to do 8 cube missions for their alliances. It's like the Be Kind rewind of Marvel Snap. Snap at the beginning of Proving Grounds and stay through the whole game. Lidrillin asks if alliances will be changed. The 4K personal is about an hour a day for 3 to 5 days, which gives you very few days to actually like play the game outside of Alliance demands. And I don't think so. I think the how much they want you to play is going to stay, although the what they want you to play might change. They've already announced that they're going to make changes to how Alliance rewards work, but I think they're going to keep us playing a lot. The whole point of Alliances from their point of view is to get people that play the game to play more of the game. They want us on the app. Why? We don't know. I guess if you play more, you're more likely to spend. Maybe we're about to start getting ads, which would also make sense. Let's find out. The King of Questions, Lee, asks if we can do a Snap Judgments League Top 4 Tournament of Champions. So those of you who don't know, we run a tournament basically every other month. This tournament is a league-style tournament. It plays out over about a month and a half, where you play a game a week in the tournament. You have to be a $1 Patreon to join. That's the only thing. Winners of each pod of about 30 people in that league get a season pass, and then the winners of each pod play in a big championship. And the winner of that is the winner of that league that season and gets I believe it's about $200 or so right now for coming in first overall. So there's cash prizes at the end of this dealie too. I don't actually remember how much money it is, so if it's more than two, I'm pretty sure it's more than 200, but it doesn't matter. We've had 2 winners, and we'll be crowning the 3rd winner, I believe, next weekend or so. One of the winners you'll see in 2 slides, and the other was Butt of that Woody player group fame. So when we get to 4, Lee wants to have a Tournament of Champions, and I'm not against a Tournament of Champions, but I think I'd rather have it be a top 8. So someone remind me of this when we get to 8 seasons of Snap Judgments League in about a year, and we will do a Tournament of Champions. So again, for those of you who don't know, I am a teacher. 2Ties asks if I use my video skills in class at all. Nope. I've never released a video to class. Classes don't have any idea I do YouTube, to the best of my knowledge. I guess some of my students do. I don't really give a shit. But I don't do videos for class. I don't do any video skills stuff for class. Although the same basic format of slideshow, usually there's slideshow for first few minutes of class followed by activity. That is generally the subject. People are like, how do you do so much? Because the slideshows, finding decks takes forever, but the actual making of a slideshow, because I do it every freaking day for work, is not a long process for me. Hey, certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. So I'm going to say thank you to our Patreons, and then I'm going to go back to vacation. So thank you to the great Abigail Geeslin, Mandatory Burnout, hello friend, Cables, Matt H, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, Always Kind, LAB, the great FaThorNewman, who you should totally check out on YouTube and Twitch, Good Dog Gamer, Deus Vault, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jay Never Eats, Corwin, Primed Ryan, who will not watch these videos early. I get it, Ryan. Ryan Burke, Lee, the King of Questions, Koirei, coming all the way from Japan, such a good person, Pyrophoros, the Goat Seeker, Denman Falcon, Quid Pro Joe, who's got a question coming in a video relatively soon, or maybe it already happened, Time Travel, Archangel 3K, welcome back, the King of New Marvel Snap Card Content, Doc D, make sure you go watch Doc D's speed video, Fat Nick, Ginger Prime, Ratco, Philip Rakovich, who makes all our shorts, Haplo, Kenny Loggins, who lives in the danger zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, X-Force V, and Skippy G. Tommy Nyquist, hey, we said we'd talk about him. He won Snap Judgments League Season 1 and is sponsoring Season 3. The King of Bros, Brett, Black Dahlia, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Woody, Ryan Wood, Kev C. Hoda, Luna Chris, Quantum Quinn, John Q, Clam, I'm still working on what I want to do with that clam thing. 8th Sage, Mod Supreme Models, who basically organizes my life. The one and only Darth Vader, Remus Atala, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B. J. D. McDonaldino, who you should check out on Twitch, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrumix, Matt H. DJ, Mikey Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Ocularis, Mr. Craig Sterry, Seamus, Jonesy. Thank you, Jonesy. Check out the Triple Threat on YouTube. 2Ties, my current alliance leader. I think I'm going to head over to the Black Dahlia Alliance when I get back from vacation, because I'll be flipping through the Snap Judgments Alliances. The great Lauren Whatevs, who you will see in a surprise on this channel soon. The Pirate King Tuccrr, check him out on Twitch and YouTube. The Homie Min, who we miss greatly, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. We will miss 0 videos, and I will see you soon around my birthday, which is August 26th. Check below for an awesome video that has all the speed stuff you could be interested in. Peace.